Yeah, Senator Lee, I appreciate your service and the fact that you're a true constitutionalist, which is becoming a rarity these days. I'm a 60-year-old law-abiding citizen, family man, married 33 years. I've never been so fearful of our republic as I am now. And I think Obama is doing things that any other president would have been called down on many years or months ago. So my question is, why doesn't anybody ever challenge him when he comes along and he changes a provision of a legislation that was passed by Congress? Why doesn't anybody ever call him and say, you can't do that? What's going to happen if he sets this precedence and he continues to set this precedence? He can just come along and say, well, tell you what, I think the minimum wage should be $30 an hour. I say it, and I'm going to make that so. What's to stop him from basically? And there's so many other areas, as you know, in which he is acting beyond his constitutional rights. Can anybody rein him in? And if we don't rein him in, I am very fearful of the future for my children, my grandchildren especially.
Okay, that's an outstanding question. I'm thrilled that you asked it because this gets to one of the most important points in this discussion, which is we have reached a moment at which we have to ask ourselves the question, if not us, who? And if not now, when? We cannot rely on somebody else to stand up to this president who has violated the Constitution over and over and over again, not limited to this law, but including this law. So on at least 3 occasions, he has rather fundamentally altered the effect of the legislative text that was enacted into law by Congress 3 years ago. That is not his prerogative to do that. He can't change the statute once it's enacted into law without going back to Congress and saying, okay, I'd like you to fix this, so have the House pass something and then have the Senate pass it as well and then send it to me and I'll sign it into law as the president. He even at least indirectly acknowledged that last week during a press conference in which he said, yeah, under normal circumstances, what I should have done, rather than just suspending the employer mandate, for instance, would have been for me to go to leaders in Congress and ask for a statutory modification. But he said, but these aren't ordinary circumstances. That begs the question, what exactly does this president have in mind when he says ordinary circumstances? Does he mean it's not ordinary circumstances when he doesn't have both houses of Congress under the control of his party? I think that's what he means. And if that is what he means, that's awful. In any event, he doesn't have the power to do what he did, what he has done now at least 3 times just with respect to Obamacare. There are those who are saying, well, we should just go to court and fight it in court. There are at least 2 problems with that strategy, or at least 2 reasons why that strategy alone won't work. Number one, it is very, very difficult in this kind of a case, in that kind of a circumstance, for anyone to establish what's called standing to challenge that kind of action in federal court. I wish we had more time to talk about Article 3 standing in court, but but needless to say, you have to be able to establish that you personally have suffered a direct, concrete injury in fact, fairly traceable to the conduct of the defendant, here the President of the United States, and that conduct by the defendant is subject to a remedy that the court could issue. There are a lot of reasons why it would be difficult to impossible for almost anyone to be able to establish standing to the changes that he's made to Obamacare here. Even if they could, moreover, there is a second reason why this is probably not an adequate response to what the president did. These changes, these 3 changes that he's made so far, dealing with the employer mandate, the income verification provisions for Obamacare exchange subsidies, and now this new change that we just learned about that's going to keep health care premiums artificially low for the first year, but then cause them to spike only after the 2014 election cycle is complete. Any challenge in court, even if it were successful, probably would not culminate, probably would not be completed until after that year was over anyway. And so the case would become moot. And so this is yet another reason why we have to hold the president accountable now. And the only way to do that is for us to act now through Congress by refusing to fund Obamacare's further implementation and enforcement. So thank you very much for asking that question. That is one of the most important points in all of this discussion, and it's exactly why there's so much urgency in this need to delay Obamacare by refusing to fund it.